Hello, and welcome back to Bombchu. I'm Austin, and if you're looking for the November 2020 Humble Choice review, you're in the wrong place. Go check out our other video on that. In this video, we're gonna take a look back. Before Humble Choice, before IGN, back to the original Humble monthly bundle that launched 5 years ago, in November of 2015. There were no sneak peeks. All we knew was that it was a new type of bundle that you had to pay $12 for before getting to see what was inside. We were promised games that hadn't been bundled before. Some were skeptical, some were hyped. Let's see how this first bundle turned out all those years ago. Lethal League is a half ball sport, half fighting game that is full-on competitive. If this looks familiar, the sequel, Lethal League Blaze, was recently featured in a Humble Choice bundle. You and at least one opponent whack a ball. When you whack it, it changes to your color. And if the ball is your color, you are safe from it, and it cannot hurt you. If your opponent hits the ball, and it touches you when it's someone else's color, you will die, so make sure you hit it whenever possible. As the ball gets hit more and more, it starts to build up speed to levels that I would call impossible to see, though I suspect competitive players would disagree with me. Once the ball hits a certain threshold, it will freeze in place on each whack to show how much power is being poured into the hit, and this allows your opponent to prep their own return shot. You can throw them off guard by bunting the ball, momentarily removing its speed and color, but also making the next hit go off much faster. Outside of this, each character has some special traits and a special move. Like Candyman can make the ball pass through walls and back through the opposite side of the level. Blaze definitely has more features and some modern polish, but make no mistake, this is still a fine game, and I remember being really excited to get some friends into it when it showed up in this bundle. Sanctuary RPG is a modern ASCII art RPG. It actually claims to be the first full ASCII art game on Steam, but I haven't verified that myself. Select a class, make a character, set up their stats and history, and let the humor begin. Yes, there are a good number of laughs to be had, which is good, because the charm of text graphics can only go so far. Though, interestingly, it seems some of the art is procedurally generated in this edition, so that's pretty cool. Much like text games of old, you'll be interacting with menus and prompts throughout the game, typing a letter or a number to make a choice. Fight screens at first seem to have an overload of information, but once you play a few fights, you quickly realize most of what you need to see is color-coded to grab your attention. I played as a barbarian, and was surprised to see an interesting combo system. You can choose a starting attack and then combo into other attacks and finishers, or if you're getting your butt kicked, you can reposition after doing an attack to regain some MP, and remove certain buffs from the enemy and debuffs from yourself. Once you get a good feel for your moves and how to keep a good eye on your health and status, you can move through regular battles pretty quickly, but be careful, as death is punishing. In regular mode, death means losing your character. There is a softcore mode that allows you to keep going, but death is still a major setback, and this mode lowers your item drop rate. So, have fun with it, but don't let your guard down and get killed by something silly. Despite the old-style interaction, the interface and information provided is really useful. Like when you find a new piece of equipment, it shows you the stats of the new equipment compared to what you currently have equipped in that slot. I don't have anything against ASCII art, but I usually don't want to play games that way. Still, Sanctuary manages to get me the info I need, with some charm to boot, and there's something warm and fuzzy about seeing this kind of game in widescreen. Almost like that's how this type of game should have always been made. And hot damn, turn up the sound when you play this one, it has an excellent soundtrack. Besiege is a build-your-own siege engine game with a focus on physics and destruction. Each level, you're given a goal, such as destroy all the buildings or kill all the soldiers, and you can do so however you see fit, so long as your design fits within the space constraints allowed. You can make a simple vehicle and run over your enemies, or you can make a massive bomb that destroys everything in sight. People on the Steam Workshop have made working mechs and all sorts of creative things. I remember at the time when this was really huge, Imgur was filled with hilarious designs. As you know, I'm not a very creative person, and I also struggle to get a grip on such a wealth of tools at my fingertips, but this one makes it easy to enjoy the creativity of others through the Steam Workshop. If you love to build stuff and play with your creations, this will be a jam for you. But even if you're not into that sort of thing, there are a lot of laughs to be had here. Towerfall Ascension is a local multiplayer action game freed from the clutches of the Ouya. Yes, if you have heard of that failed mini-console, you have probably also heard of Towerfall, as it was one of the only notable games that came to that platform. Apparently, the original version of this game was focused on versus mode, but Ascension added in a single player and co-op mode, and me and my friends ended up trying out the co-op mode thinking it was the main focus. It's super fun. Everyone has a small number of arrows they can shoot in 8 directions, or you can jump on your enemies' heads. Just about everything kills you, including friendly fire and accidentally getting hit by your own arrow, but don't worry, your friends can pick you up. And they probably will be doing that a lot. Shooting feels good, and there is some tracking with shots to help with only being able to aim in 8 directions. There are fun enemies, especially doppelgangers, who took us by surprise every time they showed up. This game unfortunately doesn't have online multiplayer, but I played with my friends through Steam Remote Play, and while we all did die a lot, I don't think anyone tried to blame their deaths on lag. Legend of Grimrock 2 is a modern grid-based first-person dungeon crawler. You start off crashed onto a beach and locked in a cage, and have to figure out how to escape with your limited interface. This really feels like a game from the late 80s or early 90s, with a modern graphical engine. You can freely look around, and moving from space to space is fully animated, which helps to keep you from getting disoriented. Older titles would often use a still image, which would update once when you moved or turned, and combined with maze-style maps that were common to the genre, being able to see everything actually rendered in 3D is a godsend. You'll need to look around for weapons, food, and keys, as well as strategically fight enemies while maneuvering around them on the grid layout of the map. Combat doesn't start off difficult, though it can be a bit tedious. You'll circle around enemies whacking at them, and then waiting for cooldowns, and starting off you don't hit very hard, so you'll have to do it a lot. Puzzles give very light hints and leave you to do some thinking or trial and error. It's tough, and I got stuck pretty early on. If you already love this genre, I suspect you'll have a grand time here. And if you've been interested to try a game like this but weren't sure where to start, this seems like a perfect entry point. Saints Row 4 is an over-the-top open-world comedy game and follow-up to Saints Row the Third. If you played that game, there's going to be a lot of familiar stuff here, and that's because this game originally started out in development as an expansion for it, titled Enter the Dominatrix. Oddly enough, Saints Row 4 got its own Enter the Dominatrix DLC, which confuses things a bit. Anyway, you are the President of the United States, as well as the leader of the 3rd Street Saints street gang. Say that 3 times fast. After you finish punching out a member of Congress, aliens invade Washington, and you get thrown into a simulation of the city from Saints Row the Third. In general, you can expect a lot more of the same stuff, with lots of insane weapons that we definitely can't show you here on YouTube, parodies of pop culture, and a map with lots of side quests and objectives to do. There's also co-op, so you don't have to spend your time in the simulation alone. Where this entry sets itself apart is in the addition of superpowers. Since you no longer have to follow the laws of physics, you start to gain abilities like being able to jump over buildings or use telekinesis. It's fun, and despite having come out 7 years ago, some of the humor still holds up. It feels like there's a bit too much recycled to be a full new game in the series, but it's certainly a step above an expansion, and it launched at a very fair price of $20. Controversially, Humble was promising games that hadn't been bundled before when promoting this first monthly bundle, and Saints Row 4 had been in a Humble bundle before this, specifically the Humble Jumbo Bundle 3 in November 2014. This was frustrating to see, and it seems when Humble promised games that hadn't been bundled before, they meant some of the games would be new to bundle, not all of them. Valkyria Chronicles is a turn-based action strategy RPG set on a fictional continent in the 1930s. That's a lot to unpack. War has broken out between 2 countries, and when war breaks out, battles happen. And when battles happen, people die! Yes, despite the pencil-on-paper anime aesthetic, the horrors of war give you a reality check very quickly. Battles play out like so. You get a top-down view of the map, seeing your units and any enemy units that are currently visible to your units. You use command points to select one of your units and start the action phase. You can freely run around until you run out of energy or feel you're in a good position to fire on an enemy, at which point you can pull out your gun and aim down your sights, pausing the action as you line up your shot. Your shots can go anywhere within the circle of the reticle, so if your enemy isn't taking up most of the circle, expect some of your shots to miss. It's all random, unfortunately. After you take a shot at an enemy, they will get to counterattack, so hopefully you are shooting from behind cover. You use all your command points, and then the enemy gets to move their soldiers around, and all this plays out in reverse. Your units will automatically shoot anyone they see moving, and if one of your units is attacked, they will counterattack. The concept of being able to freely run and aim your gun in a turn-based strategy RPG was pretty novel in 2008, which is when this game originally launched on PS3. But 12 years later, I find myself wanting skill shots to matter more and less reliance on RNG. I'm also not sure if it's just due to the style, but cutscenes look pretty rough for me compared to the graphics during gameplay. At first I thought they were FMV scenes, but I caught a graphical glitch in a tree in the background, so I'm not sure what to believe. Cutscenes have a bad case of the jaggies, as well as some low-resolution textures. I also got erratic frame rates during scenes. That said, graphics look great during gameplay, and if you missed out or are just looking for a way to return to this game, it's great to have it on a modern platform and no longer locked away on PS3. So overall, in 2015, how was this bundle? With this being a totally new type of bundle, with people going in totally blind, and $12 being a pretty high price compared to the other bundles at that time, expectations were all over the place. Including Saints Row 4 when it had been in a previous regular bundle kinda sucked, given the way Humble advertised this bundle, and the fact that a lot of the first buyers were going to be bundle enthusiasts. I also remember that I already owned most of these games at the time, and one of the things that I've grown to love about the monthly and choice bundles as they've changed over the years is the inclusion of games that I haven't heard of before. While there wasn't really anything AAA here, this was a pretty good mixture of AA and indie titles, and I'm glad that aspect of mixing indie titles with bigger studio games has survived and improved to today. You probably noticed there was no Humble Original, and that's because those weren't really a thing until Humble Monthly had been running for a few months. You probably also noticed there were a lot fewer games than usual, even compared to a lot of the later Humble Monthly bundles. As opposed to the 12 games we get now, there were only 7. But how did the value compare? Well, going off their regular prices at the time when this bundle came out, these all totaled out to be just under $104 in value, which is really low compared to what we've seen in recent years. I would say that the smaller number of games left us with a bundle that didn't have any fluff or questionable picks in terms of the quality of the games themselves. However, I also think that with the high number of games that we get in choice these days, we get a better chance at games we don't already have, as well as games that we didn't even know we wanted. Sure, we also get some supreme crap sometimes, but some of my favorite games today are games I discovered because Humble took a chance and included something lesser known in a bundle. Finally, I remember when Humble was switching to choice, I was sad about no longer getting surprise games each month. But honestly, the first Friday every month still ends up being a surprise when all the games get revealed. We just aren't locked into or out of purchasing once we find out what's inside. If I had the choice to buy or skip this bundle after seeing what was inside, I would have passed on it. Not because the games are bad, and not because I feel it wasn't worth $12, but because I owned almost all of these games already at the time. I hope this look back has been fun for you. I'd love to hear from you though. Seeing this first monthly bundle, would you feel good paying $12 for this compared to any of the choice bundles we've gotten this year? Last, I want to give a big thank you to Blake Harms, Michael Slater, and all of our patrons over on Patreon. Your support means the world to us. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.